This is the China Hollywood Greenlight Podcast, episode number 8.
And rolling sound, quiet. Here we go. Ready?
Speeding.
120, take 7. And action.
This is Caryn McCann, the host of the China Hollywood Greenlight Podcast, a podcast about creating and distributing content for both Hollywood and China. If you like the show, please go to iTunes, subscribe, and leave a rating so other people can find the podcast. The more we work together, the more opportunities will be out there for everyone. Any links mentioned in the podcast can be found in the show notes, as well as a full transcript at my website, chinahollywoodgreenlight.com/podcast, and look for this episode, which is number 8. Before I introduce today's guest, I'd like to start out with a motivational quote to encourage our listeners to continue on their path to achieving their own green light. And today's quote comes from Buddha, who said, "The mind is everything. What you think, you become." Today's interview is with Jessica Wang, a development executive for 7 Stars Entertainment. Here is the interview. And I'd like to introduce today's guest. Today, it's Jessica Wang, and Jessica is the Director of Development at 7 Stars Entertainment, where she oversees co-production film projects for the Chinese and global markets. 7 Stars Entertainment is one of the biggest private media and investment companies in China, run by media pioneer Bruno Wu. In 2016, 7 Stars also formed a joint venture with veteran Hollywood producer Arthur Sarkeesian, who produced the Rush Hour franchise, as well as the recent film The Foreigner, starring Jackie Chan and Pierce Brosnan, to launch a new venture, Peak Time Entertainment, which will create international projects. Jessica is an experienced film executive who provides insight for both creative and business aspects of the development of the U.S.-China co-production projects. She also produced and line-produced several projects, which include the Chinese film entitled Run for Love, starring Zhang Ziyi. So, Jessica, welcome to the podcast, and thank you for coming on the show today.
Hi, Caryn. Thank you so much for having me here.
Great. Well, I've told the audience a little bit about you, but why don't you tell us more about yourself and your business?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Jessica Wang, and I'm from China. In 2013, I earned my master's degree in film production from Florida State University Film School. And after graduation, I worked as a freelance producer for about a year before I joined an international film sales agency. Mm-hmm. And now I am the Director of Development of 7 Stars Entertainment. Before I talk about other things, please allow me to introduce my company a little bit.
Sure.
The business we're engaged in. Yeah, so 7 Stars is a Los Angeles-based China-U.S. co-production company established by the Chinese investor and media entrepreneur Bruno Wu. We're dedicated to develop, produce, and distribute co-productions. And in the movies 7 Stars has worked on so far ranges from critically acclaimed ones like Grace of Monaco, The Immigrant, to the very brave and unprecedented co-production endeavor, Hollywood Adventures.
Oh, great. Yes. Okay, well, let me begin with, you told a little bit about yourself, but some of the listeners, some of them are experienced, some of them are starting out. So tell us, I know no 2 days are the same, but what are 2 or 3 main tasks you do on a typical day? And that will help explain to the listeners kind of what your job is about.
Yeah, okay, sure. So basically my job is consisted of 2 parts, the creative part and the business part. So from the creative side, on a daily basis, I work with our producing partners, writers, and sometimes even actors, developing original scripts. We will have many development meetings discussing what needs to be changed in the next draft. Then we consolidate our notes and send it to the writer. So the writer goes back to work on it, and then upon receiving a new draft, we all read it immediately, and following that is the next round of discussion. As you can imagine, the development phase ranges, from a few months to several years.
Yeah.
But I personally find it very rewarding because, for young development executives, like myself, I'm not only just applying skills that I learned from film school and gaining professional experience, but I also hear the in-depth insights, from the top writers about the industry, about screenwriting, sometimes even about life. So experience, you cannot get it from production or post-production. It only exists in development.
Well, I hope you're keeping a journal because that would make a good book. You should write a book. Okay.
Really?
Yeah, definitely. People out there want to know this mystery about how to get these scripts developed for China and Hollywood. So take good notes.
That's a good idea.
Okay. Now tell me, how do you find, and of course 7 Stars is famous, but how do you find your business partners and how do you suggest the audience finds Chinese business partners?
Oh, sorry, Caryn. Do you want me to, because I started with consists of 2 parts.
Oh, sorry. Yes. I was so excited about this new idea about a book. Go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah. So, except the projects that we already developed, I also constantly look for and identify the next project that is worth to develop. That could be a script, a novel, comic books, or a movie remake. And speaking from the business side, for some projects, I negotiate directly with the other party on co-producing and distribution deals. For some bigger projects that involves, like a top producer or IP, I work with our lawyers directly on reviewing and revising deal terms. And usually it's our lawyer who go out to negotiate with the other party's lawyer. It's very interesting that, in the industry, the business part relies on the lawyers a lot. So,
right.
Yeah, you have to find a knowledgeable and reputable attorney to represent yourself or your company.
Are those projects coming to you from America or China?
Most of them come from America.
Oh, great. Okay. Now, so you have obviously this very famous company, a great reputation, but how does 7 Stars find the business partners? Is it just people come to you? And how do you suggest the listeners find Chinese business partners?
Yeah, okay. A lot of times, many producers or writers just come to us.
Good.
And then, social skills are one of the most desired qualities in the film industry.
Right.
So a lot of projects and partners are just introduced by the partners you worked with before,
or
your friends, or your so-called contacts in other companies, or maybe somebody you just got to know in last night's party, And then on a more professional level, some companies are represented by agencies like CAA or UTA, and these agencies can introduce you their clients or projects that they help to package or they somehow, involved. Sometimes lawyers can make an introduction and broker projects as well.
Well, that kind of answers the next question on how do you suggest listeners find Chinese partners. Maybe one idea is these lawyers. But
these lawyers and these events, there will be many events and parties in early November because of AFM and the China American Film Festival. So
Right. Oh, right. Okay, so the listeners should A, be going to the AFM, and B, probably going to this LA Chinese Film Festival.
Yeah, and some other events.
Okay. Well, now I know you've got a mixture of projects on your slate, but can you tell us about an obstacle perhaps you encountered on a past project, and how did you overcome it, and what did you learn?
I think there's a challenge that we face every day, and I think most co-production companies too. And that is it's difficult to make a co-production to be appealing to both Western and the Eastern audience.
Right.
So far we haven't really seen any co-productions that, both markets responded to very well. But that doesn't necessarily make us lose hope or become negative, because when it comes to co-productions, like The Great Wall or Hollywood Adventures, we cannot just judge them based on its box office numbers. even if it's not that bad either. Because co-productions also mean so much for the general collaboration and in the future between China and Hollywood. So I think all the co-productions that have been made took us one step closer to the win-win situation we're pursuing. And then there are also successful films that could be co-productions, but they're not. For example, like The Martian or Fast and Furious. They are rare, but they are worth developing and discovering. So what I've learned, I think we need to look for those great stories with universal subject matter or theme and organic Chinese elements instead of just forcing in Chinese actors and the storylines. Because actors are always the driving force for the projects, but content is always the king.
That's good. Yes, I totally agree. So the obstacle, you would say, is finding projects that appeal to both markets,
right?
And then finding the universal theme in the script. Now, is there a desire for your company to shoot? You're more interested in shooting in America or China, or it doesn't matter?
Well, it's all based on the script. It's based on the story. It depends on what the story needs.
Okay. Now, talk about here's a question. If you could magically solve 2 pain points, what would they be?
I think there are many. There are still many gaps between China and Hollywood from our perception of film as an art, our government policy, working ethic. So I think it's normal to have this difference, but sometimes it destroys the trust and hurt the deal. So first, I'd hope in the future we could understand each other more. And I'm very happy to see that, many very high-level executives from both China and America are very open-minded and embrace and try to solve these problems positively. And another point, which is I think is already happening, is that China's involvement should not be just a source of financing. We will have more and more influence over the content. And driven by the recent clampdown on overseas investment by Chinese government, I think now Hollywood studios, are looking to enter China and get on the ground to work with Chinese companies locally and, have a share of China's market. So that's very inspiring.
So would you say that the first pain point is Americans and Chinese, just maybe a cultural difference and understanding each other? Was that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the second pain point was you would like you're hoping that the Chinese content there be more how can I say?
We should be more involved
more involved in the project, not just a source of financing out of China.
Right. Do you want me to recap it? So
No. This is good. Okay. This is good. But tell me, it's you've got Chinese language projects, English language projects. What sort of future projects are you looking for? A, what language? B, is it film or TV? What genre? What budget range? And what do you think the Chinese studios are looking for?
Well, I think, we're open to anything. If I can just summarize in one sentence, that we're just looking for great content with universal theme that, both Eastern and Western audience can relate to. I'm not going to say a certain genre or, language, even if we all know that action or sci-fi are very popular. But I think filmmaking should never be just copying a previously successful movie, I think writers or directors should just genuinely tell a story, and I think you will find your audience. And then on another note, I think, web series are very popular nowadays in China. With a slightly looser censorship, you can try many interesting concepts that you think might be too risky to do for the big screen. I think the internet is going to be a great outlet for content as well, especially for those young or upcoming filmmakers in China, because usually the cost is lower and it's less risky for the investors. And you don't need to compete with some blockbusters on the same release day. But the downside though is there's only a few popular video websites. If they don't take it, then you may have a problem to find a good distribution platform.
And that's a good point. But at least it sounds like this would be an exciting project if someone were to introduce it to you.
Right. Yeah, we're open to anything. I cannot say that for other companies.
Right.
But I think most of the companies are very open. They just need great content.
What do you think the Chinese studios are looking for?
Well, you mean like TV in terms of TV or films or web series in the format?
Let's start with film.
Well, I think, like I said, it just needs to be like great stories that the Chinese audience can relate to. It can be anything. It can, have you heard of the movie called Dango?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? Like before that movie, we all know that sports movie won't work. And Indian movies is not very popular. Right. But that movie is just so different.
Right, it was the family themes which resonated.
And then also, it's just that the audience can all relate to the expectation that you hope somebody win in the game,
right.
And then the father-daughter relationship.
Good. Yes. Okay. Well, that's a new. You could call it sports drama. That could be an area of opportunity. So, listeners, write that sports drama. Let me ask this: What are you hoping to accomplish this year?
Work-wise, I try my best to drive the projects forward, and I hope we can achieve the script that can satisfy all of us. And on a personal level, like I said, I think there are many subjects that I would love to learn and improve myself.
Do you want to share any of that? You don't have to, but if you want to.
Yeah, I thought you were going to ask the other question about if I can do my career again. Or
yeah. Well, let me ask that. What if you could do your career over again? What would you do differently?
I think personally, I would train myself to be more business savvy. Because I studied production at school, and I was trained to be a director. And now I'm working more, like a producer. So I need to consciously learn more about financing, about negotiation, about law, etc. So I think it really depends on what you would like to do. If you want to be a director or if you want to work on set, then that's different. But I noticed that many students, no matter what their majors are, they all want to pursue a career as a producer. In that case, except a good taste in stories and knowledge in filmmaking, you have to have some business sense. So that's also something that I would like to improve myself on.
Well, and as with your directing background or studying directing in school, that would help you as a producer because then you know what happens on set, how that affects the budget. So it all helps.
Right, absolutely.
Okay, so tell me, what are you hoping to accomplish this year? Well, besides, you got the learning. You mentioned some learning. You might want to learn some new things. Do you want to share anything?
I also take some classes, like business classes on the side.
Good.
About entertainment law that will be very helpful for my work.
Oh,
and that's also something that I didn't learn at school. So
good point.
Yeah, that's something that I'm working on right now.
So tell me, what skills or talents are essential to be a development executive?
Well, first of all, you have to have a good taste in script.
Right.
And that is something that cannot be taught. And then you have to be a fast reader. You have to be mentally strong because everyone knows that development is the hell. Yeah, and then you have to keep your faith and believe in the projects that you are developing, and also be nice and make people like you because connection is super important. And last, I would say just never stop learning. Always improve yourself.
Good advice. Now here's a trick question. What question did I not ask you that I should have?
I think we've covered everything.
Okay, no worries. Now you've given us a little bit of advice, but let me have this last question. What other guidance or advice can you give those aspiring to tap into the Chinese market?
Again, I would say content is the king. Just genuinely telling a story, and you will find your audience. Like we just talked about the movie Dango, right?
Right.
So if you look at a story, it's very clearly 3-act structured and very genuinely and down to the earth writing and acting. So I think the audience will relate to that very well if you find, this thing that you have a feeling for. If you can tell the story from your own experience instead of, just trying to create another Wolf Warrior 2.
Right. Yeah, right.
So,
yeah, well, we might see a few of those next year.
I'm sorry?
We might see more Wolf Warrior.
For sure. There are many companies just trying to create something similar or in the same vein.
Okay, well, that problem is it's no longer original, but
right.
You can see why people loved it. Okay. Well, in conclusion, Jessica, is there any projects you'd like to plug or any social medias you'd like to share or website links?
Well, all of our projects, if they are announced, you can find it on Hollywood Reporters or Variety. So we don't really have a website, but we definitely update our status, through the trees.
And is there any social media handles that you want to share just about yourself?
I don't have any public account, but if you'd like to, I'm fine to share my WeChat account name with you.
Yeah, whatever you like. We can put that in the show notes.
Yeah, it's QIAN 5594. That's my WeChat. You can add me.
Great. Well, Jessica, thank you for coming on the show today. You had some very interesting stories and some really good advice. And I want to say thank you for being a part of this podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's been an honor.
Okay, Jessica. And we'll see you at the premiere.
Okay, thank you.
I have 3 key points about my interview with Jessica. The first is, as she said, actors drive the project, but content is king. Jessica used the movie Dangal as an example of a universal theme, in this case, the theme of family. So look for universal themes. I'll put a link in the show notes for 2 blog posts I have on my website. One is called How to Bulletproof Your Script for China, and the second one is Strike Gold in China's TV Market, which will give you some ideas. The second key point is the Chinese don't want to be just a source of financing. They want to have influence over the content. And thanks to, or due to, the clampdown on Chinese overseas investments, U.S. studios are getting smart about working with Chinese companies locally. And number 3, a web series is easier to finance than a film, and you don't have to compete with the big films for a release date. But as Jessica pointed out, and this is something to be aware of, the downside is that you have to get on one of the few major video websites. Now, as far as takeaways, I have 2. First, Jessica is not only doing her job well, but taking outside classes that will allow her to grow and move up in the company. She's a development exec, but taking law classes. She also mentioned how lawyers broker deals and can make introductions to future partners. So she is definitely moving up and making great connections. And the second takeaway is teamwork. Jessica said, as we all know, development is hell. You need to be committed to the long haul, and that goes for everybody, execs, writers, producers. But it's not enough to be super talented. You need to be a team player. As Jessica said, connections are everything. Or as they say in Chinese, you need guanxi. And now for the episodic part of this podcast, where I update you on my path to getting my own TV and film projects greenlit. 2 updates. Number 1, I'm reviewing the Chinese version of my action thriller script and will be sending it out this week. And number 2, I already did send out, of course, the English versions of a few scripts to the folks I met, the Americans I met at the AFM. So wish me luck on that. So thank you for listening. To show your support, go to iTunes, subscribe, and leave a rating so other people can find the podcast. The more we work together, the more opportunities will be out there for everyone. And I'll see you at the premiere. Bye. 一会儿见.